Like when I buy this cup of coffee, Matt, like a third of what I gave Starbucks this morning actually comes from an 18-year-old who will be paying that off for 20 years. Like, I make my money by putting students into debt so that they can pursue opportunity. And I said to our staff and faculty, and guess what? So do you. Like, that's how the system works. And like, that doesn't feel good to say that out loud, but we have to say it out loud so that we can motivate ourselves to create a better pathway.
Our guest today is Dr. Aaron Kuecker. I've been talking a lot lately about blue collar and mentioning how college isn't necessary. That's what worked for me and many other successful people. Our guest today, Aaron, says maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. That's not the biggest surprise because he is the president of a college, Trinity Christian College to be exact. It's interesting though, because Trinity's ripping up the old playbook. They're taking college and mixing in trades, business, and liberal arts, and it really looks nothing like the college that I skipped. So I wanted to hear about it from him directly. What can the rest of us learn from how Trinity's rewriting the higher ed playbook? Let's find out. This is PodCrash. I've been talking about blue-collar work quite a bit lately because I do believe college isn't for everyone. I do think there's other opportunities, and I didn't go to college. But obviously, you've got a take on it that I would love to learn more about. So what is your kind of overall view of the situation we're in today?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's really good to have the chance to chat, so thanks for this. I think our neighborhoods probably flourish the best when our young people have lots of pathways to unfold their gifts and skills. So probably where I would want to start on that is like, can we create avenues for young adults as they're understanding what they're good at, what they like to do? Can we create pathways for them to have the kinds of choices that can let them really discover and maximize their gifts? And so to that end, I mean, college can be a great place for that. For some students, it's exactly what they need to be in that sort of community of formation, to do that kind of learning and to prepare for the kind of work that builds on that kind of learning. But it's not the only pathway. And so I think at Trinity, and for myself personally, I think we've been advocates of like, can we create structures that allow choice? For us on the college side, that's been about solving some of the big challenges of higher ed, like getting upstream of student loan debt, which we could talk about. But also, we're really beginning to explore what role could a college have actually in helping folks who are more inclined towards trades, more inclined towards blue collar work. And so that's been a learning experience for us along the way to try to say, can we maximize choice? And for us, the whole key is like to do it in ways that are mutually beneficial here in our Chicago ecosystem, in ways that are good for students, good for employer partners, and good for the college. So happy to unpack all of that. But that's kind of my big picture take. Like, let's make pathways for these kids to figure out what they love and what they're good at.
That's great. I mean, very well-rounded view. It sounds like that you have on it, and so much that we can dig into from what you said. So looking forward to doing that.
Yeah.
I will say, like, you're the very first college president I've ever talked to. But
oh man,
I would imagine that isn't a common view. It would seem like college president would be more self-serving. Of course, we have what the students need. What kind of brought the open-mindedness to it?
Oh, man. Okay, so that's a big question off the jump. I mean, if I just kind of really dig into that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I would say it comes from a view of the world that says we're really deeply interconnected. Okay. And that every single person needs to be able to give and to receive whatever gifts that they have in order for our neighborhoods, our families, our communities, our workplaces to function well. So that means that, like, as a college, I think we have a gift to offer. I think we have a lot we need to receive. But if I think we're the only way, I think it's a pretty stunted view. And so what we've been doing at Trinity is really trying to live into this vision of the world that is kind of like an ecosystem, which is we need to be closely connected. We need a diversity of different kinds of organizations and pathways and gifts and businesses and human beings. And when we connect those in ways that are generous, cooperative, we can actually create abundance for a lot of people. So one way of saying it, Matt, is like, it's kind of a core vision of how I think the world works, actually, which is like, we're not the only show in town. And if we were, we'd be in big trouble, actually. there's more I can say about
Wouldn't
that.
have the capacity for everyone on town anyway, right?
No, that's exactly right. And then I think the other side of it is we also learned in a very real way that like the big change that we were pursuing for a kind of healthier vision of college, which in our case was about examining the kind of unexamined assumption that we should indebt our students in order to send them to school.
Yeah.
We realized that to solve for that, there wasn't a dial or a switch just inside of our institution, but that to solve for that, we needed to partner with the wider range of stakeholders. We needed to partner with businesses. We needed to partner with nonprofits in ways that could really seek mutual good, move money differently, open opportunity differently. And so I think the other thing for me, just as a leader, is that I began to learn that in a very real way, I can't solve the hardest problems all by myself. Like I need others in my wider community.
Some noble purpose to all of that. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty powerful when motivations like that are behind you. So I want to get into some specifics of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But first, before I get too far in it, I want to sidetrack a minute on the student debt subject.
Sure.
I'd like to talk about some of the information around that because I've seen some examples like take our technicians, and if you put a doctor next to them and add up all the cost of like going to school as opposed to jumping in and earning right away and go 10 years out, and it's not a great look. But how much debt is the average student in? How long does it take to pay it off? What is that picture? You mentioned it as a big problem.
Yeah.
It's definitely been political discussion around it.
Yeah, it sure has. Yeah, it sure has. And, you know, the political conversation has centered around like, should we forgive student loan debt or not? We haven't really taken a position on that. We've said, actually, the more interesting and important work is to get upstream of the debt and figure out like, well, why do we have a system that perpetuates it? Okay. Some data around that. Man, there's $1.6 trillion in outstanding student loan debt. So the only category of debt higher in the United States, I know, $1 trillion, I know. Only mortgage debt is higher. Student loan debt is some of the hardest debt to get rid of. Like if you declare bankruptcy, you need special considerations to get out from under your student loan debt. So there's a real incentive for private student loan lenders to lend, which can be problematic. So the average college student with debt has 36 grand in debt. It doesn't sound like a lot. There's an average pay down of about 20 years on that right now.
20 years?
20 years, man. 6.5%, couple of $100 a month. You pay about 50 or 60 grand to pay it down. But what we're seeing, like what you're saying, when you say you line up a doctor next to one of your technicians, is that, well, students earn on average, about 2/3 more with a college degree than without. That wealth premium, your ability to save from an early age rather than pay those student loans, is kind of a coin flip, depending on what you study. Also depending on your race and gender. So there are some folks in America who on average come out with upwards of 80 grand in college debt. And so the problem there is that it shackles your ability to save from the beginning. So we say to our students, you take that average $250 student loan payment, wipe it away, and just save $100 a month in a retirement account starting at age 22, and you're going to be in great shape. And that's where we can kind of change the sort of generational picture for families. But to do that, like we got to solve that debt problem. That's the pathway. We have to solve that. Otherwise, we're sort of selling this vision of opportunity through a college degree that might not be true, depending on your circumstance. We don't want to sell that. We want to fix it.
You know, part of it is like, I believe there's a stereotype and stigma to blue collar that's wrong. Like,
absolutely.
Because I think you can make a lot better living than people know.
Absolutely.
But also from a going all this debt standpoint, are you really ahead? And I do, to be clear, believe that there's good things about college. If you're a doctor, please go to college.
That's right. That's right.
If you're gonna put rockets in the air, probably a good thing to have some education behind that. Let's get into then some specific things that you're trying that are different. To help that problem.
Yeah. So what we've done, so I'll kind of talk in the bit like our big picture approach for a second, which is to say, you know, I think what we've tried to do is to build a kind of microeconomy of mutual benefit with our employment partners that gets upstream of student loan debt. It works like this. It's pretty simple, actually. 3 little innovations is all we did. The first one won't sound like it's debt related, but it's maybe the most important thing we did, which is we stopped having class on Wednesdays. Sounds so simple.
I'm a student. I like that, right? And probably if I'm a teacher, I don't mind it either.
Students do like
Or
it.
professor.
Students
probably.
do like it. We call it Well-Being Wednesday, and we actually just say like, hey, what do you need to be well academically, socially, emotionally, but also financially and professionally? Higher ed sometimes gets a reputation for being slow to change. So that Wednesday change, small thing, but big thing. But what we did then, once we opened up that time, because we were recognizing, our students were working so much anyway, and we had built structures that made it harder for them to work. And so with that gift of time, that's where when I said we didn't have a switch inside the institution to say, well, we're not going to take student loans anymore. We went to our employer partners, built a big web of early stage paid internships, co-ops, sponsored degrees, micro internships, experiential education, so that kind of from the jump, students can get out the door and do hands-on learning and work with employers that we value and who are trusted. Those employers pay those students. Sometimes it's direct to tuition grants. Sometimes they pay their entire cost of a year of tuition. Sometimes it's payroll. What we try to show in that map are where are the places that, obviously for our students, that's incredible learning. We know experiential learning. If you take what you're doing in the classroom and go put it to work out in the field and then come back and think about what you've been up to, man, you grow. For our employer partners, we've wanted to get to a spot where we're like, we want to listen to what you need so well that you see what you're doing as an investment in your own bottom line, not in just philanthropy or charity for that student. So we built that web of paid experiential education in an effort to kind of say, how can all the stakeholders, students, colleges, and employers share a little bit more in the cost and benefit of higher education? And then the third thing we did, we cut our tuition by 40%. Cut our tuition by 40% in an effort to be as clear and transparent as possible about how pricing in higher education works. Higher ed pricing is confusing, man. Like, I've been doing this a long time, and when my own kids went to college, I was like, what is this? And we know that for families that don't have a lot of college experience, not only are they disadvantaged by that complexity, they often pay more. They don't know they can ask for more money, so they pay more. And I didn't want to be in a spot where...
So it's not the prices. Remember, I didn't go to college, and my kids are 6 and 8, so we haven't got them there yet.
Yeah.
So
the
price isn't the price?
Man, the typical model is to price it high and then give a healthy discount, call it a scholarship. It does reward students for good work, but it's a write-down typically of the price.
Okay.
And families who have been in those processes before, regularly would say, hey, I'm going to need a little more. And they'll often get it. And
so that's just been there established for such a long time. That's the game.
Man, I think it's like we would never build it that way, but now it's like another unexamined assumption. We wanted to move away from that, simply to say, like, we want, this is one of the bigger investments you'll make. It's a lot of money. And we want that to be as clear and simple as possible. So we reduced our price point by 40% and really simplified how we do our financial aid. We built that web of paid internships, which gets our students hands-on experience, but also gets them paid, really defrays the cost of education. And then we opened up time by not having class on Wednesdays as an anchor for that day. Students work in other times as well. But really, we just put those things together and said, with our employer partners, why don't we just try to do it differently? They want to get their hands on the students that we educate. Our students want that experience. We want to see them unfold their gifts, and we don't want them to be indebted. So that's what we did.
Yeah. You said they're little things. They are very practical solutions. But then, you're bucking the system a little bit. So, did that make you be perceived as like a discount school then?
Yeah.
So that would be like, if you go down in your price, you risk presenting yourself as like a discount provider, or in this case, educator.
Yep.
How do you fight that?
Yeah, great. That's a really good question. And a lot of folks have asked that question. You know what I mean? If you price your Mercedes like it's a Kia, does everyone think it's a Kia?
Right.
Basically. I think the thing we have going for us in this moment is that the higher ed's sort of public perception right now is not great. And one of the things underneath that, like the precipitous decline in like public approval of colleges and universities in the last decade, has been pretty astounding. One of the core criticisms is ever escalating tuition. And so I think for us to get in the room and say, we agree that that is one of the big problems, actually, and here's what we're going to do about it, I think that gives us a pretty good talking point, actually. Now, I don't think everybody can hear it, actually. There are some folks who think like, man, I want to pay that $80,000 price tag, and that equals prestige, that equals quality. And maybe some families can do that. Maybe some can't, but we're just trying to say we're doing a different thing over here and let us tell you about it. So it does buck the system a little bit. You are starting to see a handful of colleges begin to move in that direction, though, as well, because I think it's hard to justify. Like, why has tuition outpaced inflation like crazy since 1980? You got to be able to justify that, too.
You didn't get phone calls from president of college ABC saying, what are you doing? Like,
no, nobody
called.
No prank calls late at night from, another university extension. Okay. But I will tell you this, that we've had some good dialogue partners in the higher ed space. Although I think the folks who have been most interested in joining the wider conversation with us, man, we've actually been at work across Chicago and more broadly with some national and local partners saying like, could we do this more broadly in Chicago? Like, why couldn't Chicago be a place where students can take any path they want, free of debt, in a way that's employment linked, that's, talent retaining for our city and state, in a way that boosts our economy? So as we've cultivated those conversations, the folks who have been most interested are actually the folks who think about financial stability for young adults and families. They're the ones who understand that debt equation. They're the ones who understand that, 82% of students who with student loan debt report that they've delayed a significant life milestone, like buying a house or having kids or getting married, or 2/3 of folks who feel that they have high student loan debt are actively looking for their next job. That hurts our employment partners. That hurts community stability. And the folks who have been quickest to come to the table with us actually folks who are thinking about economic stability of families and young adults.
It makes very good sense. Obviously, from the principle of like, we'll help them reduce that debt by giving them the day off and creating an ecosystem where they can go and earn while they learn.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about that too, I feel, because part of what I also think is hard about college is I look back, like I wasn't making the best decisions at 17.
Sure.
And like, you have to choose, like at 17 years old, what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And then of course people end up not wanting to do that, not using the degree because that wasn't end up being where life took them or what they desired to do. So the interesting thing about the work, like they get some experience to see if they like it too. Is that, are you seeing that?
That's a really good point. Actually, I think, one thing I'd say on the front end of that's been pretty cool is that, you got all kinds of different skill sets and different types of learners, but it's pretty cool when you see a student who maybe isn't like the top in the classroom, get out into their internship and they just nail it. You know what I mean? It's like they're built for that. That's the kind of learning that they can do. And so it's been pretty neat to be able to celebrate both kinds of those learning. So that's been really good. And then that kind of question of like discernment, so to speak, like, is this really for me? Or did I just think it was for me when I was 14 and people started asking me what I was going to do? That's really valuable, and so to give students access to that in ways that they can say, no, that's not what I thought it was. It's not what it looked like on TV. It's not what I thought it was when my grandpa was doing it. Right. That sort of fits into what I was saying earlier about like, how do we create those pathways of choice so that people can really figure out where their gifts are? I think we just believe that like, man, if you can activate a human being's gifts, that's about the most powerful thing you can do in the world. I know you see that here all the time. Like if you can do that, like there's really nothing more powerful you can do.
I think it's great. We're involved in a collision engineering program where it's they go to school for 8 weeks, come into the shop for 8 weeks. So they get to experience the job and learn about it. And I think the great benefit of that is they didn't go all the way through the trade school, go get the job and find out they hate the job.
You got it.
So like this kind of on the college end does the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is great.
So for our students, what we've seen is students who participate in those paid experiential education programs, their average debt load is actually exactly that amount less than the average Trinity student debt load. So we're seeing that really impact student loan debt. In our first couple of semesters, we were able to eliminate about $250,000 of student loan debt, which is a decent number, but that's about a $450,000 pay down. Or, when you do the math and you're like, man, and if those
Or how
students
many years? If it's 20
exactly
years.
20 years, but like those students invest that, like we basically created the possibility for several $1,000,000 in wealth if students, so that feels good. We're seeing that. We're seeing students get jobs. We're seeing them get job offers in their junior year, which of course is a huge deal to them. Uh, the challenge is, students are people, and anytime you have people who are employees, there are challenges. And so the learning curve for students, we offer a lot of support on our end. And we actually look for employer partners who really want to invest in people as well, who don't just see our students, as commodities to get the work done,
Yeah.
because they are 20. And so they do need support. And sometimes it doesn't go well. And, we always want, of course, every time we send out a co-op student, we want them to be like the superstar. Hey, we're all on learning journeys. And so we want those students to be in places where they stub their toe, where they make a mistake. We can help them learn, or we can help them find a different pathway. So that's one challenge, and then I think institutionally, man, I just think anytime you go for big change, you better be ready to fail a lot on the front end. So we've seen a lot of forward moving momentum, even as like we've really figured out how to refine our processes. Maybe one of the biggest learnings for us, Matt, has been like, if we're really going to do this in partnership, I actually like, I don't even really talk too much about partnership anymore. It's maybe a weird metaphor, but I'm like, we need organizational friendship, which means like with our partners, we better listen to what they need, and we better flex to give them what they need in the same way you would with your friend, so that there can be real mutual benefit. Colleges aren't usually built for that. Colleges are built to have a curriculum, and this is how we do it. And like, if you want to partner with us, here you go. This is how you do it. But for us, I think we're learning like, can we be friends? And that means we got to listen to each other. You know what I mean? So there's some big learning there.
The world could use more of that, I think, in general, right?
Yeah.
So you got to ask about like any kind of time you're trying to revamp the way everything goes. Like, what are the behind the scenes conversations like?
Yeah.
There's risk in it, right?
Yeah.
I can't believe it was just got this idea, smooth sailing.
No, man. Just an unbroken train of glory is what it was. It was, yeah. Oh, man. Like it's so good to work in communities of people, and educational institutions, sometimes get a reputation for being slow to change. You got a lot of folks in there who are, first of all, very invested in the outcomes of students and see pathways that they feel are good. I mean, if you think of it this way, like one of the gifts of a college professor, for example, is that they get where they are by showing why other people's ideas aren't as good as theirs. That's what research is, And that's a huge gift. Like we need folks who problem solve like that. I think for me, it's about how do I learn to use the gifts of those folks. The path that we took, I mean, the way that we got the change curve moving was we actually began telling some uncomfortable truths. So the kind of moment for me, well, I almost always have a cup of coffee in my hand, but I just said to our faculty and staff, like when I buy this cup of coffee, Matt, I can tell you that a third of it, like a third of what I gave Starbucks this morning, is actually comes from an 18-year-old who will be paying that off for 20 years. Like I make my money by indebting students. That's not very comfortable to say. And we serve a lot of students that come from vulnerable backgrounds.
Yeah.
And I make my money by putting students into debt so that they can pursue opportunity. And I said to our staff and faculty, and guess what? So do you. Like, that's how the system works. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good to say that out loud. But we have to say it out loud so that we can motivate ourselves to create a better pathway. We got pretty early buy-in around that because that doesn't feel good. Like our faculty and staff, they love our students. And when they're like, this is a kid who, this might be the first in their family to go to college and their mom's working 3 jobs to put them through college. And to say like, I'm making my money by indebting that kid. Like if we say it out loud, I think there'd be more impetus for change in the wider system. Now, as we began working towards that, obviously, like we're a complicated organization, like we're kind of a small town. We have housing and food service and academics and emotional, counseling support. And we run an athletics program. So there are a lot of inputs into the complexity of our system. Man, I made so many mistakes in actually not understanding the gifts that people could bring to the problem solving from all those diverse perspectives. I've heard people say, Matt, like, fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, not the solution that you bring to it.
Mhm.
I can go back over the last 3 years, man, and tell you where are the places that I fell in love with my solution and not the problem that needed to be solved. And when I do that, like, it freezes out like the voices of innovation that could come to the table and then own it with me. Those are some mistakes I made, man. So I've learned a lot in that. We've done a lot of fine tuning. We're still learning how to communicate about this actually to students and families because it's a little bit of a new pathway.
Yeah.
Your question earlier about does a lower price point mean you're a value buy? All of that we're still learning. And so I think, and we've had a really good group of leaders and a really good group of trustees, but I credit folks for the courage to like keep making those mistakes on the forward moving trajectory. Like, I think that's real courage because, anytime you sort of step out of the way things are done, there's a lot of pull back to familiar and old. And especially then when you make mistakes, like it would be very easy to be like, see,
Oh yeah.
don't work.
There's a lot of people waiting to say it.
They are.
So, yeah.
And so I think for our community to like keep messing up and then taking the next step forward and treating those mistakes not as failure, but as data points and learning moments. Man, big credit to the community for that. And if I were to go back 3 years and start this all over, I'd be a lot better at that too.
That's great.
You know?
It takes some bravery to do it and be willing to like acknowledge the journey, make the mistakes, learn from them.
Yeah.
You don't come off as somebody who said, I got this all figured out.
Man.
This is the plan.
Man. Yeah. And I know you see that too in your work that like there's a poet. I didn't think I was going to quote a poet today. Can I quote
Sure.
poetry? Can we use poetry? There's a poet that has a line that says, we make the path by walking it. And that's true. Like anytime you're doing something new, like I'm sure you've had times where like you could see the mountain off in the distance. But man, like you had to make the path, which there wasn't a way. And that's hard. It's hard, but that mountain, that's a great view from that mountain.
That's awesome. I mean, the critics don't bother you.
Yeah.
To me, sometimes the critics just give me the like, I'm going to prove it. Sometimes my team would tell me I can't get something done just to get me fired up.
Just to get me going. A little reverse psychology, man. There's no way you can pull it. Yeah.
It's not like I don't know they're doing it. Like I call it out, but still it's there.
It's good. I do feel competitive in that way. I guess kind of speaking personally about my own, journey as a leader, if I were to go that direction with you, I think I would say like, well, when you're serving as a college president, you serve a lot of different constituencies. You've got your students, you got your partners, you got donors, you got a board, you got your employees. Those folks aren't always aligned in what they think. And I think I just began to learn that like, if I let my decisions be controlled by whatever I think might be in the head of the person sitting across from me, like, man, I'm not going to operate out of my core convictions. And my core convictions are for the good of our students and for our neighborhoods. And so, I mean, I think just as in the process of growing up as a leader, learning to let people hold those opinions. Like if they're critical, to let them hold that and to try to understand it.
Yep.
But to not let that dictate how we act on our core convictions. Learn from it, understand their strongest argument, walk towards it. All of that is true. But ultimately, at the end of the day, to show up as your best self, to make the decisions along with your team that you think are best for the people you want to serve. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Let's pretend a little bit. We got a debate going on this subject. So, if I look back at kind of circumstances I grew up in, there wasn't a college goal for me, couldn't have afforded it. And I didn't particularly love going to school. I wasn't bad at it, but I didn't love it. So, in the whole like take a blue collar path versus go to college. You're pitching college. I don't love school. Maybe I'm an average student. I'm not a great athlete, so I don't have huge scholarships lined up for me in any kind of way. Why do it versus just jump into a trade?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to go back to where we started to say this is where I'm like, how can we, like as leaders in our communities, create pathways that allow students the choice to sort of follow their gifts and interests And I think like, I think you mentioned this earlier, but like really celebrate, honor, and dignify those choices so that there's no reason that when a student chooses college versus trades or trades versus college, there's no value judgment there, but we often do act like there is. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, on
we'll,
both sides,
we'll
right?
absolutely, absolutely. So, like, how can we as leaders kind of help reshape that discourse? You know what I mean? And I do think it's a spot for me as a college president. Like, for example, like I think I have a particular obligation to celebrate the gifts of kids who aren't going to college. I think I got a particular obligation to do that. Our neighborhoods need the gifts of those people, need it bad, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think I want to see how can we create those pathways. And I think what we're trying to do on the college side is to build that in a more integrated way with our neighbors and partners. And I think, we've been taking some steps. I'm actually really excited about it with some manufacturing partners to say like, we can't be all things to all people, and we shouldn't try. We need all kinds of organizations and institutions in our wider ecosystem. But we're beginning to take some steps towards what would it look like to create pathways for students who are actually the you that you just described, like didn't see a college path, wanted to do something that was putting different gifts to use, didn't want to be in a classroom. So we're in the build out phase of some of that, which is new learning for us, but exciting. But I think kind of fits into that vision of like, can we create pathways of choice that are supported, and that take the barriers out, and then just celebrate what those students are doing? Just a quick aside. My grandpa pops into my mind. Who passed away about a decade ago. My grandpa was a farmer in rural Iowa. He worked at a passenger elevator manufacturer in our small town.
Mm-hmm.
He was a woodworker. When I graduated from college, and then when I got a couple degrees after that, my grandpa used to say to me, you're so much smarter than me. And I'm like, Grandpa, what are you talking about? He could do anything. He could fix anything. He had this kind of knowledge and wisdom for how the world works.
Practical
He was our
experience.
first call. He was our first call for almost every problem. And I'm like, if we can't celebrate that and say how much we need that, something's wrong with us. You know what I mean? Something's wrong with us. So yeah. So I think of that. Sorry, personal story, but
No,
my grandpa was wrong, man. He's so much smarter than me. And he brought so much value to his community.
yeah, he probably meant book smart.
He
Right.
probably did.
Yeah.
Even so, he's wrong. He's wrong, man.
I was told a comment that you made, and I'm intrigued by it because I think I get what you meant, but you commented on those going to trades compared to college lose community. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think that's something I feel curious about. In fact, I would love your take. I would love your take on this. So we've been in this process with a couple of manufacturing partners and building out kind of apprenticeship hybrid program that would basically pay for students to do two years of apprentice learning, for example, in a production facility where they'd be working 16 to 20 hours a week, getting paid for that. And then taking some classes at a place like Trinity, some basic business work that helps them maybe get a little bit of line of sight for how business works and, be able to grow with the company. And then some basic stuff that you do in your early years of college that are around problem solving, critical thinking, communication, teamwork. For our partners in the build out in that, what they're looking for is like, hey, how do we just get employees who are really primed and ready to grow with a handful of skills that can help them kind of ascend in the company? As we've talked about that, and as I've listened to the experience of our employer partners, but also listened to the experience of students, one thing that I have my eye on that honestly I don't think I would have known to think about until recently was that for some students who go a more blue collar or trades route, for some, you do kind of become dislocated from your communities of support and formation. I mean, it depends on your group of high school friends. Maybe it depends on your neighborhood or family. Maybe it depends on faith community or other group that you associate with. But like a lot of your community becomes your work community, which can be good. And because people are people, can have challenges. And so I think one thing I feel curious about actually, and if I were to go like one layer nerdier, I think too about, man, 18 to 20 is like such a key moment for like brain development and like, you talked about like choice making and things like that. Like what happens if for those students who want to go in that blue collar route, they can have actually that work, that access, exactly what they need inside of something that feels a little bit like a college community, a community of support, a community, you know what I mean, where they can continue to be shaped by a pretty intentional community, and then along the way, I also say like, man, and if they're a good baseball player, still play baseball for a couple of years or things like that. So I've been feeling
Mhm.
curious about that as like a benefit to kind of like a hybrid approach where, for example, manufacturers or more blue collar shops partner with colleges in a highly flexible way where students are doing the apprenticeship, getting exactly the kind of learning that those employers want them to have, but also then, they're in that community. What do you think about that?
Interesting. So I never thought about it till this conversation. I think there's always a degree of who do you hang with,
You
right?
got it.
What
Yeah.
that determines, what you like to do
Yeah.
after work and what
Yeah.
conversations you have. I always have seen in life that sometimes it's who you know
Yeah.
versus what you know
Yeah.
sometimes. So I do believe and I also have always thought like that would be an advantage to some of the higher education and
Yep.
some of the elite schools because I think it's the network
Yeah. Right.
that you come out of there with,
Yep.
which obviously you're not going to have in a trade.
Yep.
But I also think you can get to meet people anywhere
For sure.
from your neighborhood to
Yep.
your church to your and I think as a big company, like one of the things that's been great about it is you do become part of something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And the company can do some charitable things and the
Yep.
company can help people see career paths. At least I hope that that's what I know
That's
we're
right.
doing that.
You
I
guys are
hope we're
doing that.
creating
That's right. Not everybody does that, but that's right. You're doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
We happen to be very tribal as an industry, and so there is a loyalty to who we are and what
Yeah.
and so I think we bring those components, but I can see where in the concept of like, well, who do I hang with if I just jump in the trades and I
Yeah.
don't have these clubs or
Yeah. Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Part of me, this wouldn't be a good answer, but part of me is like, well, we do. It's the bar,
Yeah.
right? Like, but
Yeah.
that's not where you're going to necessarily meet the best people always either. I think there's a path to that in both.
Yeah.
But I think even if you put a person that doesn't network well in a room full of all the opportunity in the world or the best association in the world, they might not get it if they're not
That's right.
putting themselves out there.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of what you put
Yep.
into it.
Yep. I think that's 100% true. That's 100% true. And we can teach people that. You can teach people that here. You know what I mean? You can teach them how to do that better, more effectively, and we can too,
Yeah. But in fairness to any side of this conversation, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't experience it unless you're in it,
Yeah.
and kind of, I mean, definitely, like I couldn't have grown the business without the team and without the networking the team
Right.
does, like
Right?
because it takes relationships, it takes
Huge.
getting to know people.
Yep.
So I think that's comes true of both.
Huge.
Really understand, what you're up to and think it's great. Is this like, obviously you're learning and it's evolving, but is there things you're holding back? Like the plan really is to do even these other things, but they're not ready for that yet.
So,
Am I getting too nosy?
easy there. Well, I think actually for us, when we started this, so we're small, which is actually one of the things that helped us in this process was that we're small. So we could be a little bit quicker to change. A 30,000 student institution, that's massive. You know what I mean? In those change processes, it might never happen. But I think from the jump, what we saw was that in Chicago, we actually have all the pieces of the puzzle that we need to actually remake the broader system. So I would say like the bigger swing, so to speak, and the conversation that we've been wanting to cultivate is to bring employers and funders and educational institutions from across our region to the table to say, if we can do this in a way that's more in sync, connected, mutual, we really could help Chicago become a different kind of place when it comes to the opportunity and access that we provide for our students. Like, there's no reason, actually, that we couldn't do it different. Like when I describe Trinity's solution, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But it's about connection, communication, and about having the imagination to do it. So when we started this, and what we talk about what we're doing, Matt, as the Transformative Colleges Initiative, and we called it plural colleges right from the jump. And that was like maybe the little indicator that we were like, we think what we're doing is highly replicable, especially in metropolitan areas where there are a lot of excellent employers, a lot of educational institutions. And I mean, man, Cook County has got this immense resource of, just in Chicago public schools, 400,000 kids, man. That's an immense set of gifts. So I think for me personally, for us at Trinity, the opportunity to cultivate that conversation in our city with the leaders who can make decisions to do things differently, that's where I want to go. So like in a decade, like I want people to be looking at Chicago and saying like, this place is different now, because whether it's college or whether it's the trades, we've brought the stakeholders together to work in a more coordinated way. And it's been good for our students. It's been good for business. That means it's good for the economy. That means our neighborhoods can flourish. I don't see any reason we can't do that. It's just about will and energy and time.
Love it.
Yeah.
Maybe some questions around like bigger, like things that probably would be a lot harder to tackle, but curious about. So, number one, like I think like problem with school and the cost and the time it takes and everything is stuff that you don't need to learn. Like I always wondered, like, why do you retake English if you're not, if you're going to go into business, like you've learned enough English by the time you exit high school. English isn't something you need to take further, just as an example. So why such broad retake of classes that you already learned that have no practical application once you leave the school? Why is stuff like that required? And would anybody ever change it?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think we're probably like really on the cusp of having to wrestle really hard with what does AI mean for education? So
I was going to go there next.
yeah,
So okay.
whether places would want to or not, like that's something to hugely grapple with because, well, I saw a news story the other day about a student that I won't name the name of the institution, but who was threatening legal action to get tuition back because student learned that their professor was using AI to write their lecture notes, and the student was like, "Well, why am I paying you for that? I'll go to ChatGPT and do that myself."
Fair.
That's a pretty good question. And so, like school, just as like purveying content and knowledge, like we have to move beyond those days. There are some features of that, and I think a good teacher helps you contextualize your knowledge, but really helps you put it to use. I think. And so to your question about classes like that wouldn't seem like there's a direct line between, taking a writing class, for example, and becoming an accountant, just to like think about like writing and numbers, for example, is actually about I think the skills, the practical skills that you develop when you learn how to communicate in a way that someone can sort of track your argument. And so I do think that there is a place for that kind of learning, but I think we're going to have to become a lot more flexible in how we think about that. I think it's going to be a big challenge actually for faculty, and like it's amazing. Like I see what some of the folks at our institution are doing. Like I'm like in awe of how they're sort of grappling with this world of AI and saying like, okay, if you can access all that knowledge, in a nanosecond, then now what does it mean to take your learning to a higher level where you're not just getting content that you're going to say back, but you're learning now how to use that to solve really big problems. You're learning how to do that to take on complex issues. I think that's the kind of learning probably that we need and that we have access to. I think you can get that in a lot of different subject areas, but I do think AI is going to make us really have a serious conversation about what we need. But I was in a conversation actually with one of the partners that we're building out this 2-year sort of trades pathway, and he said something fascinating to me. He's like, I think every college exam should have 2 parts. He's like, I think the first one should be timed, and you use any tool you can lay your hands on. You want to use ChatGPT, use ChatGPT, use your calculator, blah blah blah. And then the other half is pencil and paper. And one that is about sort of the slow thinking, but the other is about like speed to solution. And we need both of those. We need the ability to sit in the problem, but we also need speed to solution. Like business needs that. And I'm like, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and it'd be interesting to watch the change. There's so many things that are practical and help you, and then there's other things that's just knowledge for the sake of knowledge.
You got it.
And I don't know that that's that valuable.
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're gonna specialize in trivia or want to go win at Jeopardy, but outside of that, knowledge just for knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe because I don't have a lot of that, so I'm like, I can't answer all those trivia questions, but
I think you got a lot of it.
Can't make any money with that anyway.
Yeah. I think you got a lot of it. And I think we're on the same page there, because I think like what we want, I think our approach to education at Trinity, and maybe other places aren't like this, maybe they are, but has been pretty practiced. It's like we learn in order to put things to work, not just so that not just so that we can answer a question, but in particular, like how can the content of what we learn help us engage our communities in ways that make them better? It's really the core question that we pursue educationally. Like, how can what we learn make us the kind of people who can engage our communities to help more people thrive? That's what we want.
So the AI subject you brought up.
Yeah.
So a couple directions I want to talk about there briefly is, first of all, like it seems like some careers will go away because of AI.
Maybe, yeah.
Because people that are in those careers will be so efficient at what they do, you don't need as many. So then it seems like AI will just be another avenue for different careers that colleges end up teaching, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this for sure. So like a big caveat, but I think you're right. Like I think AI feels pretty pervasive, but like we've definitely seen things like this before. Like think about all the jobs that
calculators and computers, right?
All the jobs that didn't exist before the internet. You know what I mean? And now like there are entire fields that only have to do with that keyboard and its connectivity to every other keyboard in the world, you know? So we've done that before. And then businesses and workplaces shift, and how people spend their time and their work shifts. And I think we'll see that. And so I guess I would say, like, as with any new thing, like there's going to be pros and cons to that, you know? But like, can we approach it with curiosity and creativity and say, especially, for places like Crash Champions that are like, man, they've got some really good core values. So put that to use and service that, and then figure out how it reshapes your workforce,
Very true. What about then, on the other side of it, I say like service businesses, like what we do are the things that AI and robots aren't going to take away. It maybe some things, but a lot of it will always need people in doing these service trades. Would that ever get introduced back in high school? Because I mean, high school used to be the place where you would learn some of those things, see if you like it.
Yep.
And it's completely, I assume, because of funding, not there anymore. But even pre-college, do you see it transforming? It seems like a big uphill battle.
Yeah, good question. I do see more and more places that are kind of rounding out their high school curriculum like that, which I think is great. And I think you're making a really important point when you're like, hey, there are some spaces, service industry is one you named, that like it's a little bit AI proof, like AI is going to support, but you're going to need human beings. I feel curious about, like, so many industries would say like, man, we've got a big shortage of employees. Or we've got I was talking to one of your colleagues earlier, think of all the places that are worried about the retirement bubble that's coming. And so maybe one thing AI does is helps us kind of resort a little bit. Like, where are we going to get folks to fill all these unfilled positions in industries where there's shortage? I don't know, but maybe those kinds of efficiencies that technology can provide can create some pathways that open the door for more folks to go into those places where the work is really good, really important, really plentiful, and can give you a good life.
I hope so. I kind of say it's win-win a little bit, because supply and demand is true. So like if nobody gets interested in doing what we do, we'll probably get paid really, really well for it in the future when there's not enough of us. So either way, we either attract people to it or we win otherwise, because we become so rare. Either way, I like the future of it.
I hear you.
And then a lot of noise, around colleges today. President Trump wanting to defund. I mean,
Yeah.
Harvard's in the news recently, right, where they
Got it.
wants to pull all their funding. Any concern to anybody besides those particular schools?
Yeah.
Is it a threat to anything bigger, or is it just schools with agendas kind
Yeah.
of subject?
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk about Trinity. I think one, like with our folks at Trinity, I always, first of all, just want to say like, hey, we can control what we can control. So, whatever's going on nationally, we control what we can control. So we shape the community that we are. We serve the students that we serve, and we're gonna do that regardless of what we're hearing over, here or there. Like we've got pretty deep institutional core commitments that really honor the dignity of every student. Like we're going to serve them as best we can, no matter what. That's a pretty important starting point for me, because I do think like no matter where you sit on any particular issue, that noise in the system is making a lot of people afraid. And when you get afraid, you actually can, you turn inward, you stop serving the folks you want to serve, you make decisions that are driven by the wrong things. So we're trying to not do that. I think, gosh, so many, Trinity has about 10% of our students are international students, for example.
Okay.
Man, they're a huge gift to our college campus. Like
Mhm.
they come, like they want to learn, they expand our horizons. They're involved, they become leaders. A lot of what's going on around international students right now, like I wonder who's gonna, are folks gonna want to send their kids if they're at threat for, being identified as needing to go home for reasons that are unclear. So I think more about like the longer term impact of that. There's a lot of places around the world you could go to study. And so will this become a place where we lose the opportunity actually to have our community's been so enriched by our students from Brazil and Spain and Kazakhstan, all over the world, so enriched.
So that's a broader conversation around it. But, as kind of at risk of sounding dumb, I didn't know colleges got money from the government. I
Yeah.
thought that's what tuition was for. I thought that's what I thought they were funded by alumni and et cetera. Like how much government money does go to colleges?
Yeah, we don't get much money from the federal government. Our students do. So like a lot of what you're hearing in the news right now, certainly around like research universities who get funded research dollars or money like that from the government. So when you're hearing like these
Okay.
4, 6, $800 million,
I didn't know about those.
they're
Okay.
doing research. For us, we don't get direct federal grants. What we get, our students who are particularly financially vulnerable get need-based aid that's called the Pell Grant. And so that gives them a handful of $1,000 that just comes as a grant. It's based on their income, their family's income. So that's a big deal for students who come from families that are more vulnerable financially. So that goes direct to students. And then the government also runs a really large federal student loan program. That's the other place. So the impact for places like Trinity that aren't research institutions, like we're really more about access, teaching the students in our area, creating opportunity. We've got professors who do incredible research, but we're not like a huge research laboratory like the University of Illinois or something like that. So those cuts in funding don't impact us there. I mean, if the government were to stop funding the Pell Grant, man, that would have a massive impact on students whose families are more vulnerable economically. That would be massive.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for doing this today. Commend anytime you're trying to transform how things are done. We talked about there's risk in it, there's adversity in it, but commend you for seeing something that really needs to change and trying to actually do something about it. It's great to see.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation, and thanks for the work that you're doing as well to sort of lift up and honor all the work that can be done in this world. So I'm really glad we could talk.
Yeah, we'll continue the conversation and see how maybe Crash can get involved with some of the students.
Sounds good.
But kind of to end it, we're all about championing people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we gave you the heads up or not, but love to ask in kind of conclusion, is there somebody in your life that you'd like to champion and throw a shout out to?
Man, that's a great question. Can I do two?
Sure.
I just briefly named my grandpa, Marvin Whittle, who I named earlier, and just to champion him as man, someone who would help any person and could solve anybody's problem and do it quietly and humbly. And so I just named my grandpa. Actually, I didn't expect to talk about my grandpa today. So
Now you
thanks
did
for
got
that.
you twice.
Yeah, I know, man. This is amazing. Yeah, I actually want to name a friend of mine who I now work with at Trinity named Diamond Hargis. Diamond's from Indianapolis. We'll spend some time growing up in Chicago on the west side. You know, Diamond, I learned from Diamond actually how to see gift everywhere I look. Like, he spent years of his life
That's
actually,
a great attitude.
man, oh man, he spent years of his life in some neighborhoods that a lot of folks would look at and say that's a challenging neighborhood. And he spent years going door to door saying, what are 3 things you can do well enough to teach someone else? And who besides me, and in his case, it was a church, who besides me in this faith community are with you on the journey to share that with the neighborhood? And I think what Diamond uncovered was that our neighborhoods are full of abundance, of gift, of people just waiting to be connected so that we can help that gift flow. And so much of what we're doing at Trinity actually is about learning to see gift everywhere we look and understanding that if we don't have that perspective, we're going to miss out on a lot. We're going to limit a lot of people's opportunities. So I'll shout out my friend Diamond, who I now get to work with, but really who was my teacher in how to see the world in that way.
Oh, what a great lesson to learn. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to keep the cameras rolling while we handle some other business here. Our Chief Marketing Officer, Danny Briones, is here. Danny, take it away.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I appreciate you having me on board here.
Pretty sure now you're kind of having me because I have
Yeah.
no idea where we're going.
That's right. No, but thanks for having me. I had some things I wanted to kind of get your take on. You ready for this random question?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It's on technology, but I want to get your take on it. So, you've been championing the trades on social media overall, right? Your TikTok approach is very focused on blue collar. And some of the things that you've mentioned is that I would say our space or our industry in collision repair is AI proof.
Okay.
But do you really believe that?
AI proof in that I don't think it eliminates people. Like, I just don't. Like, I think it's going to, there's some ways I'm really excited that it's going to help us and make us more efficient and make us be able to find information that's super important for making sure we do things correctly. And administrative things that we don't like to do anyway. Like, I think there's things that it's going to assist us and make us efficient. But as far as being able to do it completely without people, not in my lifetime.
And you
from what I can see.
100% believe that.
Yeah. Well, if I didn't believe it, like, what would I be doing in this business? Like, I basically am completely invested. I mean, this is what I know. This is what I do. If I thought it was going the way of the dinosaur, I would be running for the doors. But I don't believe that at all. Like, nothing from a technology perspective. Like, I know that those that are driving it, like Elon Musk would say, like, cars are going to drive themselves. 50% of the miles driven are going to be self-driving in 5 years. That's his goal. That's what he's driving for his company. It doesn't mean that it happens in 5 years. And the math would say it's impossible. There's 280 million cars on the road, and they sell 16 to 18 million a year, new ones in the US. So just do the math. The average car on the road is 12 to 14 years. That means it's 12 to 14 years before you get to half of the cars on the road. And so the math says it ain't happening. I know that he's voicing that that's what he sees as his vision, but the math would argue. So in my business lifetime, no. And I mean, if I believed any different, I would probably be pretty panicked.
Looking out of our industry, so when I think of like graphic designers and like video production people, that's a very unique skill set where it takes, just a perspective, a design perspective or an angle to create. And you look at what OpenAI launched on the image graphic generator that they just launched, it's pretty damn good when it comes to design now. So graphic designers 5-10 years ago probably didn't think their jobs were going to be replaced. It's looking a little scary, I would say, for them. And look at video production as well. I mean, you got Opus Clip and all these other AI features that are coming out. There's a lot of variabilities that go into video, and there's still a lot of human elements, but it's getting better and better and better every single day.
I think it's a tool
Yeah.
in your toolbox, and the best people will learn how to use it better than others. But I feel there's still a people factor to it all.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like if you look at the the world we live in, like uniqueness is valued. I mean, you take a vehicle model and like a one that's unique is more valuable than one that isn't. So, a GT versus a standard version, like the uniqueness and the rarity of the GT is got value, and
Yeah.
that's in the car business. But I think uniqueness in entertainment, like there's things in life that like you've got a McDonald's hamburger and then you've got a gourmet hamburger. You've got things that can be mass produced and everybody's good with it, and then you've got unique things that are valued more. And I think that just becomes AI is a tool for generating things that are good and efficiency, but I still think that it's the uniqueness that people have to offer that's going to create a different kind of value than AI that will do the same thing for anybody. If anybody can get it or do it, the value of it goes down. It's just the way it works. So like it's the people factor and the creativity and the
Yeah.
and the uniqueness and their unique perspective that I think is being missed in that conversation.
Yeah. Can I, if I could briefly show you this image, I thought it was super cool. It was a campaign that Impact did, but check that out. When you think about just construction overall, I mean, there's a lot of fact to that.
And
So
the thing about construction is none of that goes as planned. Like there's problems to solve every day where things vary from the circumstances in the real field to compared to what they thought they expected when they were designing it on paper.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, Matt, I appreciate you giving me another chance or another time here to speak with you on another random question and picking your brain. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you want more PodCrash in your life, which of course you do, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Catch you next time.